My next guest right here was in the prison system for many years. Not in the way that a lot of people in this genre are. He was on the other side of the fence. Correctional officer. Started out in the 80s, made his way over to Corcoran when it was relatively new. Got to see all the movers and shakers coming into the institution. Over his time, he went from being a yard officer to a kitchen cop. Finally ended up in the squad. And for all you that don't know who the squad is, it's the ISU, the the Investigative Services Unit. So he's seen a lot of people, he's seen a lot of things, but the one thing that he always maintained was a level of integrity in a system that was corrupt, that was underhanded, that was all the way up the ladder in involvement with people in the government, unions and everything like that, fighting against this man. They made threats against his life. They scared the crap out of his kid at a beach, of which we all know is inappropriate. In our world, we try to do everything in our power to not involve children. But these dudes play by a different set of rules. You guys have heard me comment about the CDCR as the California Department of Corruptions and Rehumiliation. And a lot of people were wondering, where did I get that term? Well, it was actually from this man right here. Even before that, I met him, and I seen him around, and I read about his story, and I've seen him in the chatter. Didn't get a chance to read his book until he sent it to me. But hearing the things that he saw and that he's seen behind the scenes, forever branded them as a Department of Corruptions and Rehumiliation to me. Because not only were they corrupt in many different ways, but they do tend to try to rehumiliate you over and over and over again. And they tried to do that with my man right here. I'm going to let him go ahead and tell his story. Mr. DJ Vodka, welcome.
Thanks, JD, for allowing me to come on your podcast and your YouTube video to share my story.
Well, it's always a pleasure, man. I mean, it's you made big news some time ago, and I remember hearing about it. I was probably shuffling around through the violations and all that, but you were pretty much just, not only were you ostracized, but these people were making attempts on your life, or they were threatening with violence, were they not?
Yeah, especially after the Thanksgiving riot in November of 1998 at Salinas Valley State Prison, when I was told by the lieutenant of the yard to do the investigation, the crime scene, and photograph the inmates, the Southern Hispanic inmates, prior to being rehoused back in their cells, and make sure they didn't have any injuries on them by photographing them. Because after I photographed them, these guys, part of the Green Wall, they took them back to their cells and tuned them up, beat them down, and destroyed all their property, and told them, hey, you guys we control this yard, we're the Green Wall, and you guys you have no control of this yard. And they, the Southern Hispanics, they got tired of the disrespect from these guys. And before I went to Salinas, I ended up at a couple other prisons where I started out. Like you said earlier, yeah, I worked Corcoran State Prison. I opened up that prison in 1988, March of 1988. Spent about 4 years there. Shortly after that, I went to Calipatria State Prison in 1992. That's where I was part of the ISU unit down there. I activated that prison. And then from there, 2 years later, I ended up at Pelican Bay. And once again, I was at Pelican Bay from 1994 to 96. Part of their ISU unit. I was the evidence officer there and seen a lot of stuff going on there. And I've seen a couple officers and sergeants get sent to federal prison and over criminal activity on inmates. And from there, I went to Salinas Valley, and that's when, after I left the ISU unit there in November of '98, a couple of days before '98, the Thanksgiving riot went off, and that's when I was labeled a rat and a snitch by my own peers.
And that place was on lockdown for a long time after that. I remember.
Yeah, after that the riot happened, and the staff, the Southern Hispanics, they did attack staff, on the yard. They beat them down. They actually stabbed a couple of them, and some of them had to go to the outside hospital. And after that, yeah, the whole institution was locked down for a good 5 or 6 months until they did an investigation because, you know, the Southern Hispanics attack staff, and we know, and you know, the only way that can happen is having getting a green light from the higher ups, the Mexican mafia, the MA. They're the ones that put the green light on staff. The Southern Hispanics can't just go attack staff for no reason.
And it's not very common that you know, Sureños would even attack staff. You know, it's always been kind of like an unwritten rule that they try not to have any friction with the staff. I mean, that's Southern, that's Northern as well. So it must have been something like, I can't quite put my finger on why that happened, but I remember the institution, I mean, the whole place was on lockdown for a very long time, but then it got off of lockdown and then something happened again on the C yard and it just went right back on lockdown. That place stayed on lockdown.
Yeah, well, at CR, some of these guys on the Green Wall, members who were part of the ISU unit, Internal Affairs unit at Salinas. And these guys, some of them went up to an inmate's cell, a Hispanic inmate who was getting ready to go home, and they cuffed him to the rail. And so the inmate could actually watch the cell search. And one of the guys on the Green Wall members pulled out an inmate manufactured weapon from his jumpsuit and looked back at him and said, "Look, hey, this is yours, isn't it?" And put it under his pillow. And that inmate was, "Man, you're setting me up." They actually set him up for a third strike. So these guys were they were bad, and they all had the backing from the warden. The warden's the one that told these correctional staff, part of the ISU and the Green Wall, go put fear and intimidation on these inmates. They're not going to run my prison. We're going to control my prison, and we're going to run it the way we want to run it. Without Sacramento knowing about it. And, you know, that's all in the book. And he told Sacramento, he didn't even tell Sacramento what he was doing. He didn't tell his higher ups what was going on.
Yeah, man. So this Green Wall, from what I was gathering, what you were saying, you had this dude Hernandez. I mean, he had to make a phone call bad, obviously, you know. And whatever transpired with that, you know, I guess staff didn't act quick enough, which led to that whole altercation. And then the attack ensued after that. And that's where you said in the book that the Green Wall had kind of formed with that solidarity, that standing together like something on a Gladiators movie or something, right? Where they all just stood together and, you know, they got their money. They fought them off and so they started wearing these started wearing these turkey badges.
Yeah, they had like after the Thanksgiving riot on November of '98 on the D yard. Shortly after that, they started forming their little group, having parties.
That was like the Medal of Valor right there.
It was actually a turkey pin, little turkey pin. Yeah. They pinned it on their collars and all that, which is an unauthorized item on their uniforms. And they were told to take it off, but they weren't going to take it off because they had the backing of the warden to identify they were a part of the Green Wall and they were part of that Thanksgiving riot. And they actually had they called themselves the 723, JD. The seventh letter of the alphabet is G, the 23rd is W. And they actually threw gang signs. That looks like a W. They were throwing that up in the, you know, like walking yards. Hey, we're the wall. That's symbol of the Green Wall. And I caught that on a video with an officer doing it in the cell extraction. And later on, he was investigated and was removed from a special unit called CERT, which was like the squad. The SWAT team inside the prison. He was removed from that, from the warden. The warden who was corrupt actually had to remove him. It's just these guys were doing criminal activity, and the warden was keeping it in house, you know. And we're really bracket, you know. Then shortly after that, after this riot on Thanksgiving, the OIA, Internal Affairs from Sacramento, came down and did a big investigation, and they ended up calling me into their office, and where they had the interview, and the union was there, and they asked me, "Hey, Vodka, we're going in there with you. We're going to sit in with you." And I looked at one of the union guys and said, "I don't need your backing. I didn't do nothing wrong." But I had to go in there and sit for 3 hours and show them all the pictures I took and show them all the pictures of these inmates that weren't brutalized or beaten down prior to going in their cells and explain every photograph. And when I came out of there again, I was like, you know, "You're a rat, you're a snitch, you're good, you're a dead man walking." I mean, I had all these comments. And then shortly after that, I was put in the vehicle Sallyport, where I went back down there and out of the inmate area. I just wanted to do my time and go home. And I was the warden at the prison knew what I was doing, and he called me up to his office and he asked me, "Hey, Officer Vodka, are you aware of this group called the Green Wall? These guys who the Green?" I said, "Yes, sir. I know who they are. I know what they do and what they're doing to these guys." He goes, "Well, I need you to write me a report." And I said, "Sir, I work with these guys. I mean, you're going to protect me?" He goes, "Oh, absolutely." He said, "Well, I'll think about it, sir." He goes, "You can't think about it, Officer Vodka. I'm ordering you to write this report. You're going to write this report and give it to me." And I said, "Sir, okay, that's fine. I want it on my desk by Monday." He said, "Okay." So I called my buddy Joe Reynosa, who's in the book. He was my squad sergeant at Pelican Bay. I've known Joe for a long time. He said, "Hey, DJ, just type everything, write it, keep copies." And that's what I did. I turned it into him on the Monday, and 2 months later, here comes those guys, part of the Green Wall and ISU. They came down to the vehicle Sallyport and came into my area and asked me to step in the office. And, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'5", 300 pounds. These guys are my size too. And they quoted verbatim what was in my memorandum, JD. I said, who would know this? The only person who knew this was the warden at this prison. So it's in the book and all that. Towards the end of the book, the deposition testimony and other staff members who got deposed, and they said, "No, the warden at the prison called us in the office and he showed me your report." So I was a dead man. I was a dead man walking, And I just lost it after that. And then shortly after that, I spoke with the Office Inspector Generals, who came down and did a big investigation. And then shortly after that, they moved me overnight to a prison for my own protection.
So did they ever like troll you, or like have pet names for you, or mock you behind your back, or maybe draw like little cartoons of you or anything? Did they ever do any kind of shit like that? Because I didn't see anything like that in the book.
No, all they would say was, they would definitely call me, like they call me on the phone, and and you really can't see where the number's coming in, and they said, "Monica, you're through. You're like a dead man walking. You need to leave this prison and watch your back at all times." So I had some staff members who overheard those guys at the Green Wall, overheard them talking and all that, and they wrote documentation for me, and I submitted that. I don't know if those are in the book or not, but as far as me, like you said, symbols and all that, no. But it was just word of mouth. I knew I was no good. Like you guys say, you guys heard this term, "You're in the hat." I was in the hat, and you know what that term is. I was in the hat.
You were not only in the hat, you were in the Smokey and the Bear hat that the CDC loves to wear.
Oh yeah, the Department of Corrections,
whatever that hat's called, I don't know what it's really called, but it looks like I just call it the Smokey the Bear hat. Yeah. And used to see a lot of COs wearing those.
Yeah, they wore them. I never owned one. But like I said, after I spoke that night when I went home, I lost it after these guys came in and told me what was in my report, and I lost it, man. I was throwing trash cans around the Sallyport, and the sergeants from Internal Affairs came down and what's going on? I said, "I'm going home. You guys got to send me home." And one of the IA sergeants that was a good dude, and he was straight up, and I've known him for a while. He's no longer with us. He's passed away. Craig Donahoe, he's in the book. You probably read his deposition, all that. We worked Pelican Bay together as line officers at ISU, but he said, "DJ, I'm getting you home. And by the way, I got some guys from OIG coming down. They want to talk to you. Can they meet you at your house?" I said, "Well, I don't want them to go to my house. Let's meet somewhere isolated." So I met him somewhere in King City, which is 30 miles south of Soledad. And I sat with him for about 3 hours, told him everything on an audio tape. And they said, "Hey, thanks for sharing this with us." And not knowing this, 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, when I was at work and I tried to make it to go to work again, and here comes these vehicles, JD, like 5 or 6 of them, black cars, up to the vehicle Sallyport. And they had got out, we need in. And right away, there they are, the OIG. Didn't tell me they were coming in. They checked their weapons at the towers. They stormed the ISU unit, removed all the squad members out, all the computers, everything. They went to the warden's office, removed the warden out of the office, took all files and all that. And a big investigation, a huge investigation. And, I was like, I got to get out of here. And that's when I contacted Joe Reynosa, my buddy, who was part of SSU in Sacramento. And he said, "Joe, I'm done." He goes, "What? We got to get you out of there." And with the helping of him and his higher ups, they moved me overnight to another prison. They told me to report that Monday at Pleasant Valley State Prison. That's why I went the following Monday. But you know, the phone travels. About 8 or 9 months it traveled, and everybody started calling me a rat and a snitch over there.
Did they have the green wall over there in Pleasant Valley, or did it spread like wildfire? Did it start ending up in other prisons?
Well, no, it was all at Salinas and Soledad, mainly at Salinas. But when I was over there at Pleasant Valley, I didn't see it at Pleasant Valley. But you know, shortly after I got out, and then the last couple of years, I've seen articles that other inmates have said the green wall is surface here. The green wall is active right now, JD. It's currently active at Donovan State Prison in San Diego. About 2 or 3 months ago, the Southern Hispanics attacked staff there and tuned them up, where a lot of staff members had to go out in ambulances and all that. It's all due because these guys were throwing up the signs and bringing up the green wall down in San Diego. But it's active at High Desert State Prison. My lawyer who took on my case represented a widow up in High Desert State Prison. And the officer up there saw a lot of wrongdoing, and similar to what I went through. And he ended up coming home, kissing his wife and kissing his little boy goodbye. And he never went to work. He went up in the mountains and blew his head off. He committed suicide because he couldn't do it anymore. But my lawyer took on that case, and High Desert State Prison, as we speak, up in Susanville, as an active green wall.
What about at Corcoran?
Yeah, Corcoran, when I was back there, when I was in the 80s, and when I was up there, that's that movie they made called Felon with Richard Caruso and Val Kilmer. Excellent movie. That's 99% chance. But yeah, Corcoran had it. They weren't calling themselves the green wall. They just had that real tight click code of silence type thing. They were real tight. But the green wall didn't actually. Nobody knew about the green wall until I exposed them in the Senate hearings in the state capitol in January 21st, 2004. I had to go up there, and I was testified up there on a court hearing about the green wall in front of the director of corrections and the senators and the secretary of corrections. It was huge. And after that, I ended up, I have to move off the grid for about 6 months in hiding. I had to go up to Northern California and get off the grid until everything calmed down, until I started my civil case.
Yeah, 2004. It depends. What month did you finally end up there?
I ended up testifying in January 21st, 2004.
That was one of the rare moments that I was out, actually. But you know what? I never heard about that green wall or anything like that. You know, any of the places I've been or anything like that. Like I said, the first time I heard about that was through the information that came out regarding your situation. And then everybody would always suspect almost everybody being green wall. It's kind of like the opposite of what you guys go through on your end. You know, you think everybody is, you know, like a righteous Sureño, and you already know, being in the ISU and everything, like, there's a big difference between a Southside and a Sureño, and there's a big difference between a Sureño and an MA member, you know. But then a lot of COs would be like, oh, I think this guy's this, or I think this guy's that. It's the same thing for the inmate population. You know, people are like, oh, I bet you these dudes are green wall. I bet you they got some kind of secret society or something going on, because it just seems weird, you know. Yeah, the only pin I remember ever seeing them wear was when they were all having issues with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they had an Arnold with a screw on it, you know.
Oh, I saw that a couple times, and yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger hated the union. He didn't want anything part of the union, the department. He didn't like the union. You know what? I can understand that, because I have the same issue with the union too, JD. I ended up walking up to the chapter president when I was moved over Pleasant Valley. About a month later, he was there, Mike Jimenez, and I walked up to him and I said, hey, Mike, I've been trying to get a hold of you, man. I've been trying to reach out to you. And he looked at me, he looked at my nameplate, and he goes, oh, you're Officer Vodka. I can't talk to you, man. I've been advised not to talk to you. And he walked away from me. I said, what? I paid union dues for 16 years and you're turning your back on me? Because they represented the dirty cops. They represented the green wall. They didn't want to hear from the good cop. They wanted to hear from the bad cops. They wanted to protect them. And it was hard for me to suck in, you know, from a union that was supposed to be there for me and watch out for me. And after he told me to go seek legal counsel on the outside, and then I had to seek legal counsel on the outside.
Well, I think the best thing that they could probably do, if they want to really address the corruption, they need to get rid of that union, you know?
Absolutely. I mean,
it's that union Yeah, as you know, that union has been more detrimental to any kind of rehabilitation. That's what when they implemented the word rehabilitation at the end of the word corrections, like rehabilitation. Come on, man. They don't want to rehabilitate nobody. It's just a recycling recidivism trap, a revolving door. I mean, I don't know if you remember when they started bringing in like that joint venture, and they're bringing in the college programs and all that stuff. And I remember I was at Centinela, and I was still young enough to get in one of those. And then they pulled it. And we found out later through, the legal jailhouse lawyers and shit that the CCPOA pulled it because they looked at it as a direct threat to job security, because if guys stop coming to prison, then they start cutting back on staff,
Right. Exactly.
So anything to like, and to me, that's kind of like you swore to uphold the public safety. It's not about the inmate getting a college class and, oh, well, how come he gets to get a college class for free? And my wife had to swing around on a pole at some strip club for 16 years to pay her shit off. Well, you know what? That's not really the question here. The question is, we're dealing with people that have somehow missed the mark in life. It's the school to prison pipeline. I'm sure you've heard about. It's piss poor indifference in society. Schools and teachers that are underpaid and underfunded, they just don't give a shit. Broken homes, inflation and taxes, and low paying jobs through the roof. All our manufacturing jobs getting shipped to some toilet somewhere, God knows where. All of these things are contributing factors to the criminal. And when this criminal enters into a prison, it's not really the criminal who bears the 100% brunt of the blame. It's a breakdown in society's actions to address these things during that school to prison pipeline. So it's up to us as a compassionate society, as a society that cares. I mean, the same people that would say, don't give them nothing, just give them bread and water. Well, these are the same people that want to send billions of dollars to Iran. These are the same people that want to help the struggling economy in the Sudan. These are the same people that wanted to help rebuild the military of Japan after they bombed Pearl Harbor. So how do you justify sending all that money outwards, and yet your own people that are obviously the blood of tax-paying Americans have somehow fallen off track that the rest of us were on, or that not even myself, but you, the rest of you were on for so long. These people have fallen off the track. It's up to us as a compassionate society, as a united band of people under the United States, to say, hey, man, let's all push together and let's help this person get up on their feet. Because at the end of the day, DJ, it works like this. I'm going to get out. He's going to get out. This guy's going to get out. And guess what? These people get out completely unprepared to deal with society on society's terms. Guess who gets made a victim? Somebody like yourself, once again. So in the interest of public safety, you would think that there would be a more emphasis on doing everything in all things possible to prevent somebody from breaking the law again. And I just don't understand why the attitude is not geared towards that.